This weekend, Andy's seeing ghosts, Ryan donates to Nintendo, and we defend some towers in a Metal Gear. I'm Ryan.
I'm Andy.
And this is Weekend Rental, episode 189. Well, everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode as we head into fall and a interesting election season ahead of us. We're enjoying the calm before the storm, I think. So I'm sure we're all just anxiously awaiting the next month of this country's future.
This might be the last podcast. Who knows?
This could be. Because, I don't know. I like doing the podcast and just getting to unplug from like the crap I'm hearing on the TV. So it's nice. And it'll be nice to record next week or the next episode too and get distracted from all that.
Yep.
So I don't know what you've been up to. It's been inching ever closer to Halloween, of course. So we've been doing more Halloween-y stuff. And my son wanted to go do like the haunted farm thing. We told him there was no way in hell at 10 that he was ready for Acres of Terror because I think that scares the shit out of adults. So we went to that Moorhead, just south of town, has the haunted farm. And that was more of like a PG to PG-13 vibe. Took two of his friends. So I had 3 10-year-old boys and my wife went. And I just laughed my ass off. And kind of the reason I opened the show up the way I did was we picked those 3 kids up. And the last kid we pick up gets in. He just looks at my son. He's like, Harris or Trump? And then my son gives an answer. Then the next kid over, James, Harris or Trump? And I'm like, why are 10-year-olds talking about this?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even get involved. I was just like, this is hilarious. And then we went out to the farm after, casting our votes in the back seat of my SUV. And that was a pretty cool experience. Like, it's not super cheap. Like, it's $20 for an adult. I think 11 and under was like $11. So that was nice, but pretty crazy cool setup. I mean, they have it running, it is on an old farmstead house, so they've got, the multiple buildings and stuff to work with. So you got like, the barn, the Morton building, the, regular sheds and stuff on the property. And they just kind of weave in and out through that. And they had a lot of it themed with different stuff like The Purge, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So you saw a lot of that stuff, and it was about the right amount of scary. I would say within like the first 2 minutes, a Leatherface came out with a chainsaw, and my son cowered and grabbed my wife, and then his 2 friends just bolted, like just terrified out of their minds. And yeah, it was like, I don't know, it probably takes like 35 to 45 minutes to get through this thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then a lot of actors on hand, obviously. Kind of a few like claustrophobic fog machine filled rooms with that, like when you get done, you're just like kind of like, why does my throat hurt so much? And you're like, oh yeah. and then it dawned on me, I was like, God, I feel bad for some of those actors. Like some of those actors are in those rooms for 4 hours at a time. But yeah, really pretty cool. I mean, I'd never done the Acres of Terror one. My wife had taken her daughters, but this is the first one that I've gone to, and I thought it was pretty legit. It was a fun way to spend an evening. And then they had a few like guys doing crowd work while you're waiting to get into the things. So there's like a evil clown, and there's a guy that was Beetlejuice. They're just like up in your face screaming at you and stuff. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, I think that part is outside, they obviously try to scare you, with the imagery, but I think the most uncomfortable part of those is that part where they're like right there, and they are in your bubble all the time.
Yeah, which is just painful when you're like an introvert like me and you're just like, I don't want anything to do with you. Like, go away. For the most part, though, it was kind of perfect because, with my wife and 3 little boys, I kind of just took up the back and then I just kind of like played along with the help and just kind of let them, I wouldn't jump or say anything. And I just kind of move out of the way so they could sneak in and like jump scare the kids and my wife. So that worked out pretty well. The only thing that kind of got me was they had you exit through like kind of the carnival ride, like spinning tunnel thing where like the tunnel spins around you and you walk on a plank, right? They had two of them in sequence, and the second one was like uber fast. And it really got me like pretty violently like nauseous and disoriented. Like I did not like that. Like I thought I might puke by the time I got on the other side of that. It's weird how like that can just like throw your mind that bad. It
Yep.
shouldn't, but
Just perspective. Yeah.
yeah.
Huh. So when they saw Leatherface, were they excited that it was, oh, it's the Fortnite guy?
I didn't hear any Fortnite references, but my son's one friend is like big into horror movies, so he's just like, "Oh, I love your costume. I loved your movie," and like he's just like, "That's my favorite." And he's like, listen, talking to all of them. It was just like he was meeting celebrities. It was great.
Wow.
He knew all this
Huh.
stuff, which is kind of mind blowing for a 10-year-old. But I don't know that he's actually seen any of these movies, but he's I suppose watched like highlight reels or something on YouTube.
Huh.
So yeah, that was
So this wasn't the one that where you had to sign a waiver to.
no. In fact, that was the thing that got me, and I was asking my wife about that. I was like, it's kind of mind blowing that they didn't have you sign anything, just because people are getting hurt, and people are like losing phones and stuff. And I was like, I can't believe that they didn't. Like a lawyer isn't making them at least do that. But yeah, Acres of
Yeah.
Terror, you do have to sign your life away for sure. But I also think they do like some pretty crazy stuff on that one. Like speed you around in a bus at like 25 miles an hour through a field and stuff.
Yeah, that'll do it. Even like I think there's one of like the fall places just south of here. Like a kid died on a hayrack ride
Oh, really? That's too bad.
because he got like bumped off and like ran over. So it's like I wonder how much of that is going to get changed, just from like because it is just people like, oh, I'm just gonna
Right.
do something fun, and it grows and grows and grows and until it becomes those type of things. But they're not actual businesses and actually like,
Right. And it just takes one thing like that to get you shut down, I'm sure. Like
yep.
a death, obviously, like you're probably gonna get shut down, but like even just a kid, I just think like a kid tripping and breaking an arm, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, people will sue you for that. Yeah. Yeah, it was cool
Yep.
though. I'd recommend that one for youngerish kids for sure. I was pretty impressed.
Huh.
It kind of makes me wonder like how much money they make because they're I think they run like they're like 6 weekends that they run it, and they put a lot of work into it. So it's like, and then you're paying people, I'm sure at a premium, but obviously it must work if they've been doing it for like a decade.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even like look at something as simple as like Spirit Halloween. Like if you get in the weeds of like how much logistics that has to take to set up something like that,
Yeah.
it must be like incredibly worth it.
Well, now they're expanding. You've heard now they're gonna have Spirit of Christmas at some locations. So
Really? Wow.
get in on that game, I guess. Nobody's doing Spirit of Thanksgiving though. That's weird.
It's just gravy everywhere.
And cranberry sauce.
Yeah, I'd pick up a pumpkin pie.
Yeah.
If they kept pumpkin pies all year round, I'd go there.
See, I think pumpkin pie needs to only exist like once a year because like a pumpkin pie is good in one slice, a very thin
Oh,
slice.
I could eat a whole pie.
No. That's like the pie you just like pretend to eat while you wolf down like an apple pie. That's the proper pie.
Oh no.
Are you one of those pumpkin spice people too? That's like I want every
Nope.
pumpkin spice thing available. No, you're just the
Nope.
pumpkin pie, huh?
I don't even like pumpkin pie that has the spiciness to it. There's some of them that do have that extra like cinnamon spice or whatever in it. I just like straight pumpkin.
Huh.
Sweet potato pie, no, it's not gonna work. It's got to be pumpkin.
You put ice cream on it?
Yeah, okay. Or whipped cream or whatever.
Yeah, I mean it needs something.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't take you for.
It's about the only thing that I like. Really, out of the whole table at Thanksgiving. That's like one of the few things that's like, this is
That's
the best part
ah,
because all the other stuff is like,
no. See, that's right. I forgot that you're a turkey hater. It's so
yeah.
un-American. If you don't like turkey at Thanksgiving, you can just get out.
Unless we're going to Doc's for Thanksgiving, then it's maybe a different
I
story.
mean, yeah. If every Thanksgiving turkey was that
Hmm.
good. So, you been up to anything exciting since we recorded last?
Nothing like Halloween based. Yeah, we should start doing more of that. Got some decorations up, I guess. We're gonna have a small Halloween party for my family over here this weekend.
Nice.
Trying to come up with some Halloween games that aren't like really dumb, but I
Like
don't know
win
what you do
prizes
anymore.
games or what?
Yeah, I mean just like candy or whatever, right?
Oh,
Because they're just small children. But I don't know what you do. I mean, you can't even hardly do bobbing for apples anymore
yeah.
because that's
Yeah,
yeah.
everybody's too scared of germs these days. Well, you can always do like the fishing with the clip thing behind a curtain
Yep.
and drop a clothespin into a jar off the back of a chair. You know, the classics.
Yep. I kind of want to get like really competitive with like pumpkin bowling,
Oh, it sounds kind of fun.
but you have to yeah, you'd have to have a pretty like stout pumpkin, I think, to really take the beating of it, but
Yeah.
it'd be fun.
I bet those little guys that you can get like in the bags at Walmart would take a few beatings before you would. I mean, they'd still eventually
Hmm.
shatter, I suppose, but
Yep.
yeah. I just learned that there are new like I forget what they're called, like imitation pumpkins that are carvable. Like you carve it like a real pumpkin, so you can let it up like a jack o' lantern, but they're just fake. But then the beauty is you can keep
Uh,
it year over year, so might be worth it.
weird. So are they made of like that weird foam stuff or
They've
something?
got to be, and then yeah, they must like put like a
Yeah.
coating on the outside. I'm guessing.
Huh.
Sounds interesting. We have yet to do that. I'm sure we're going to be carving pumpkins this weekend or next
Yeah.
week.
Yeah, us too. I mean, that's always the worst part too, is because you never like take care of the pumpkins in a timely fashion afterwards. So then
Yeah.
they're just like a smothering mess of
But yeah,
like
well,
sitting on your doorstep.
my wife decided to decorate with them pretty early, so we've had some out in front of the house for about 3 weeks, and then we got that hot streak, and like most of those are just like rotting through the core already. Like they're pretty bad. Like, it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah. Huh.
Well, that'll be exciting having a party and having everybody over, especially with the
Yep.
big family. I have a ton of
Costumes.
people.
Yep.
I get to have
Um,
24, 13-year-old girls over on Saturday because
wow.
that's how many people my daughter invited because apparently she's a social butterfly. So
Wow.
super excited for that.
Yeah. Where are you going to hide for that?
That's a good question. Wherever it is, it needs to have beer, I think.
uh, come to my party.
Yeah, that's true. I'll just show up. I got
Bobbing for apples.
there's just like backwash and like boogers in there from all the children.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I want to get the flu out of the way this year, so let's just the
Yep.
surefire
Yep.
shot.
Get it all at once. Yeah.
What you should do is just like instead of bobbing in water, you just like it's just Listerine. You know what I mean? You're just sanitizing, cleaning your teeth, and having fun.
Yep.
Everyone's
Put your
like
nose
bawling,
in
it's in their
this.
eyes. That's awesome. Well,
I guess the one thing that is kind of spooky, I guess. My wife has been watching on her own the CBS show called Ghosts.
oh yeah, I've seen an episode or two.
Yeah. It's pretty popular. It's been out for a while. It's originally from BBC,
Mm-hmm.
as like a lot of things. So we started watching that version, and that's kind of been my first experience to it. And yeah, it's a good premise for a show, I think. Just having, you know, different characters that span all these
Yeah.
different eras, basically living in their own era in this house. It's pretty good. Um, I guess I don't really have to explain it too much because I think it's pretty popular and people know what the show is. But
Yeah, it is a pretty cool premise. I've only seen a couple episodes. Like I know that there's the ghost that's like because they're tied to the property, and I know there's a ghost that's like tied to a car. I don't know if he like died in the car accident or got hit by the car. Like they only see him when like the vehicle's at the house and stuff. I'm like, huh.
yeah, there's one guy who he's a he's a politician or whatever, and he died in some sort of like sex party or something in the house. So he's like the, the entire show he's not wearing pants. It's just like him in like a suit top and like a long sleeve shirt, just and then walking around and just no pants on the entire show.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I bet he loves playing that character every week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those shows like it was on my radar when it first came out, and then like I kind of even forgot it was a show. But it's been many years, so it's like, oh, this thing must have caught on because I keep seeing
Hmm.
previews for the new season now. So
Yeah.
is the British one better than the American one? Or I suppose you haven't really watched much of the
I,
American.
I haven't I haven't watched too much. Amanda will say she prefers the American one, but I think obviously a lot of the humor is a little bit different between the two. I mean, just you look at the difference between like The Office. There's quite a bit of difference in
Yeah.
the actual humor between them. It's just kind of what your preference is. They do mix up a few of the characters. Like one of them in the British one is like basically a caveman,
Okay.
where in the American one there's like a Viking and a Native American. So it's not quite the same.
Sure.
Like you can't riff off the same jokes as like a straight up caveman can. But
Right. That's yeah. It's maybe a show I should go back and check out. I just kind of out of shows to watch right now anyway, so
mhm.
might be worth it. We did watch um Critters. So I don't know if you've watched like the Critters movies from like the 80s and 90s, but like I had gotten a box set at Walmart. They do those like Halloween covered collections every year, and it was like $8 for the four movies. Apparently, there's a fifth one that came out in 2019 that I've not seen.
Wow.
So since we recorded last, we've gotten through all of those, and those are still great movies, with the exception of four. I mean, it's good practical effects. It's good like stupid humor, like people dying. Doesn't take itself too seriously. And then what's interesting is like three and four. I think the first one's like 86, second one's 89, and then three and four both come out in 91. And the third film is actually Leonardo DiCaprio's first feature film ever, which is kind of funny because he's like 10 in it. And then it goes off the rails so bad though, because we were loving them, and then four is just so bad. So like throughout three, they introduce another character because basically there's no other than the baddies. There's only like kind of one or two through characters, which is pretty typical in horror. But they introduce a character who you can tell she's basically their version of Ridley, like dresses the same attitude. Like clearly they liked aliens in that character, so they're trying to play off that. And then you get to the end of three, and if you stick through the credits, they throw a to be continued at you. And then, so all these first three films are kind of the same. Evil aliens come to Earth, they start murdering people, but then the to be continued just for some reason sends you off into space for part four. And they literally just try to make aliens, except they did a really shitty job of it and it sucks. And they spend like 40 minutes getting to the point where people are like even dying. It's so convoluted. It's like 300 years in the future. It sucked. It sucked real bad.
Wow. Why why is that like horror movies Once you get to like the fourth, fifth, sixth one, it's always like, well, we got to make one in space now.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, you usually like with a thing like this, it's like you get to the fourth one, like, okay, it's so far after the fact. It was like straight to DVD, but it's just like they clearly shot these like in sequence and released in the same year. So like, why make such polar opposite films? It made no sense. It was really frustrating. Like it kind of tainted everything else because the first three are so great. And then I watched them,
I,
watching with my son too. And then of course, like we get to the second one, and it's just like full on titties on the screen. I was like, oh god, like look away, look away. Uh,
yeah, I don't think I've seen any of these, and I knew of their existence obviously because they're everywhere, but I always
yeah,
thought they were just like a knockoff of Gremlins. But do they have much
they,
of the same type of?
yeah, it's kind of a knockoff of Gremlins and like Ghoulies and like all that. It's kind of the same sort of stuff. But yeah, it's basically like it is a lot like Gremlins. Just take away like some of the cute, right? Like they're just always evil. Um,
Okay,
you can tell that like the first one did better than they thought because the second one has like a really pretty big budget and cast and stuff. And then three is still pretty good too, obviously. But yeah, it's not much. I mean, to your point, like it really is just like, all right, the gremlins are here and just eating people, and there's no like Mogwai sort of. It is very much that feel, and they even like the way they like talk
does
to
it
each
have like
other
the
and do
same
like
kind of?
jokes and stuff.
Okay, yeah, like the debauchery
Yeah,
of Gremlins, right? Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And the like, I think the first one's the best in like they talk a lot in the gremlin or the critters talk a lot in the first one and the third one. Second one they kind of downplay that angle, but like there's a scene in the first movie that's just like has you laughing to tears where like two of them are like trapped they're gonna attack this family. They're trapped and like holed up in their farmhouse, and then the one looks at the other one and goes like, let's go get them, and the reply is, but they've got weapons. And then he goes, so what? And then the mother opens the door, explodes the guy that says so what with the shotgun, like a million pieces. And then the one that's left standing just goes, fuck. And then they all run away. It's so funny. My son loved
Oh,
that part. But yeah, they're
that's good.
I would put them up there, like as far as like 80s campy. I mean, it's exactly what you expect.
Yep.
But the first three films are all really good. Just pretend the fourth one didn't exist.
Huh.
And now I'm gonna have to find a way to watch 2019. I don't know if it's streaming and anything. I'm sure I can find a DVD copy somewhere on the internet if I need to. But yeah, highly recommend
That's wild.
those.
That's pretty crazy that they made one that new.
Yeah, and I mean, it must not have done much because I didn't hear anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How has Gremlins not been remade or like somebody
dude,
must own the rights
you
and is
just
like
jinxed
we're
it. No, you just jinxed us. Now we're gonna hear about how Gremlins is being remade in the next 3 months. Now. Like we've already screwed ourselves with Beetlejuice too. Now
That's true,
first
yeah.
Gremlins.
Oh no.
I guess there was a Gremlins too that sucked, but
Oh, I love Gremlins too.
do you? Yeah,
Yeah, it's so weird.
yeah. It just misses a lot of what made the first one. I mean, the first one's fucking weird too.
Yeah.
And
The second one is more like a breaking the fourth wall type thing,
yeah,
where it's like we know we're a movie, we're just doing a movie shit.
yeah, yeah. It is much more in line with like a Critters type vibe for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, you been working on Zelda anymore, or did you kind of walk away?
A little bit. I beat the desert, so I'm slowly getting through it. Although that takes a long time. Like you think you're just, you know, you think because of the game map is kind of small that you're going to be blowing through dungeons, right? You go over there, get to the dungeon, but actually like there's a lot of meat
Yeah,
and stuff you have to do in each area.
I feel like those opening areas have more back and forth and like do the thing to get the thing than some of the later stuff does that I'm running into. It seems like it becomes a
Okay.
little more linear, and maybe it's because you're getting better at the game too. But My boss completed it in like a week, which is amazing because that guy never has any free time. So I know it can't be too long. And I've kind of asked him like where I'm at now. And he's like, yeah, that's basically the last set of like Rift quests. And then you've got like one final chapter after that. So
Hmm.
I think I'm about 60% of the way through the game. Still
Okay.
really like it. I don't power through it the way I would with like Tears or something and just like keep putting time into it because I get through some of those dungeons and I'm like, I don't want to go back in and do that grind all over again. I mean, I love them. I love having the traditional dungeons and the puzzles, but like once I beat one, I need to like put it down for a few days, and I'll come back and when I'm in the mood.
Yeah, especially if they're tied to like a specific area and specific, species, like people, right?
Hmm.
It's almost like you're starting a whole new game inside the game almost.
I did laugh pretty hard. Went up into the mountains, and I'm not going to spoil too much for you, but you run into like a basically like a I don't know a yeti sort of character, and it's cold up there, right? So like you have to have the right gear, you have potions, or you gotta like have fire, you know? So I'm like walking around this Yeti's house, and then like I see a big pile of wood like in the corner behind the house. It's like, oh, I bet this is like a torch. I'm like, I'm gonna light this up and then I'll be warm, right? So I try for like a minute and a half to get this thing lit, and apparently like I was wrong. You're not supposed to light it on fire. And then I go into the house and the story unfolds, and you're talking to the Yeti, and here what I'd been trying to destroy was the tombstone for the Yeti's dead father. And I felt like such an asshole that I had just tried to torch it.
Oh, that's funny.
So I'm a horrible human being.
Uh,
Uh, yeah. I still do like it. I need to make sure I stick with it at a reasonable pace because I know I'm kind of at that tipping point where I get with games where I'm so far in that if I leave it for too long, I'm not going to pick it back up. So
yeah.
trying to work through that. But what we've been playing a ton of is that new Super Mario Party Jamboree. Has been very popular at our house since that came out. So I don't know. Did you pick that
Is
one up
it
yet?
I haven't yet.
Okay.
Uh I I don't typically enjoy Mario parties, so I've been holding back. I don't think I'll be able to resist the rest of my family
Right.
wanting that game, so it'll eventually happen, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I've heard this one's pretty good. Like
Yeah.
they've made some decent changes, right?
It's the best of the ones on Switch, for sure. The graphics for the Switch are really fucking good. Like this game looks amazing, which kind of makes you like get pissed off at Echoes of Wisdom running at like 12 frames a second because you're like, well, they did it here. Like, what the frick?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's exactly what you'd expect it to be. They've added like some extra modes and the online stuff, which I haven't dealt with. Um, a lot of characters. The grind to unlock maps. Like, I get that you want to like get people to play it so they can earn those unlocks and stuff, but like, kind of just give us the maps at like a more frequent pace, right? Like we're 10 rounds or 10 games into this plus some like side missions and stuff and like the extras, and we've only unlocked one extra map, which sucks. um but yeah, it's good. It's if you have problems with Mario Party, they're not going to be fixed or addressed here.
Mm-hmm.
It's This game appears to be extra bullshitty too, in terms of the camera, or not the camera, but the AI. They're super good at like consistently getting exactly what they need to come back from behind and win. And the bonus star thing like always seems to favor the AI. It's really
Oh,
bullshit.
that's a problem.
We haven't won the last three games we played, like 2 player games against two
Oh,
AI, because they'll just hand out bonus stars at the end, just toss them out. Pisses me off.
see, at that point, just let like, why do you want to lose to an AI to Mario Party?
Yeah.
It's already just kind of like throw your hands up. Whoever whoever is lucky enough to win it wins it.
Right.
Just give it to the person actually playing it then.
Yeah. 100%.
Someone.
Yeah, it blows my mind. I mean, if we were playing on like a higher AI difficulty or CPU difficulty, I'd get it, but like we're on normal. Why is that happening?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's good though. Like, I mean, it does the thing. What I was more surprised by than anything is like this thing has been getting like really good reviews everywhere, except over on GameSpot, where Dan Reichert, like the Mario fucking party master, gave it like a 6. He's given it the worst professional review score. And he's the guy who has advocated for those
Who
games
loves
his
it.
entire life.
Wow. Huh.
So I was confused by that, but I think he was wrong.
Didn't they finally add 50 turns back in? Like for
Yeah,
him?
you can get up at least to 40. I don't know how many turns you can go. I haven't cranked it up past that. But
Huh.
yeah. He did open his review though being very Dan Reicherty and like bitching about how the fact that because Bowser's a playable character, they invented a imposter Bowser to be and like that rubbed him the wrong way because that's stupid and it should just be Bowser. So I'm taking like knowing that man's mindset, he probably like knocked it 3 points just for that. So
Just for that, yeah.
but yeah, it's
The lore of Mario Party.
yeah, it's very important. I mean, he's a very knowledgeable person. I mean, he's a published author after all. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I've been very Nintendo focused the last couple months in my house, which has been nice to get a couple solid games a month apart.
Yeah. We actually played World Championships for a decent amount the other night.
Really?
Yeah, that was pretty good. It's fun. The early ones are all right, where it's just like quick 5-second things, but the really fun ones are when it's finishing a level or the longer ones, where there's a lot more variance on getting absolutely screwed on something.
Yeah, I still have that one sitting on top of my fridge, factory sealed. I don't know why I haven't played it. Just have not.
Yeah.
But that one's still good with the family dynamic. Then everybody competing against each other, and
yep.
Yeah,
it's pretty fun.
Doing.
Yep. That playtest thing, you heard about this?
Yeah, so I got the email thing on it. Like, I think I saw some bits about how it's like supposedly an open world farming ish simulator, maybe Minecrafty. But that sounds intriguing. I guess I could see that being good. Nintendo-fied. Just seems like an interesting choice from them. I guess it's just a level up on Animal Crossing sort of thing. Like you do Animal Crossing,
yeah,
add building and stuff like that.
They almost made it seem like you're in the same world, like MMO style, right? So you have your own sections to work. I don't know. Who knows?
Right.
It's just a few images that they kind of shown.
And I can't imagine the final version of this is meant for this current hardware, right?
No, I wouldn't think so.
Be testing the waters and then upgrading it and putting it on the next whatever that is.
Yeah. I just really have a hard time imagining Nintendo being the people that really like make a mind-blowing online
a persistent video game world. Yeah, yeah. I just feel like
a live game.
Yeah, I feel like they'll do the bullshit thing of like a Death Stranding type thing where it's like you exist within the same world, but you never actually see another living player. It's just like their bridge that they left over here is now in your game. Like, that's what I could see them doing. Maybe I'm wrong, but you are right. Online and Nintendo don't necessarily go well together.
Well, just the fact that they did this and then they're like, by signing up for this demo or this playtest, you agree to not tell anybody of what this is.
Right.
Like, some sort of NDA, like, how naive do you have to be to understand that you've let thousands of people in here and they're gonna tell everybody immediately?
Yeah. Yeah, it is wild because like that shit leaks when they give it to like industry people and make them sign the stuff and they have like a they have actual like job on the line and like don't want to burn
You know?
bridges, but they're just like, no, we'll just give it to anyone who's got an online subscription. Yeah. I was not shocked at all that it was leaked. Of course it was gonna be.
It's just the fact that they even put that in there, like, because all it takes is one person on the internet to leak it,
Yep.
and everybody knows, and yeah, you know that's gonna happen.
Yeah. It's kind of I mean it's cool to see though. I'm curious to see what they do with that. I don't know if that's for me necessarily, but if
Mhm.
I mean, if Nintendo could pull off like a MMO Minecraft, though, I mean that would be huge. But
It would
the
be
other
pretty
thing I
cool.
worry about them though is like look at Splatoon, right? Like instead of doing like instead of doing the generational like up constantly updating seasons like running for the life cycle of a console, like trying some microtransactions, they just continued to sequelize it and then stop putting content out after 18 months. It's
Mhm.
like but yet the Mario Party or Mario Kart 8 is just like forever ago. I don't know. Like I can't imagine them supporting a game like that after a year and a half of it being out, with updates and
Yeah,
stuff.
especially, like, if they're like, the entry point right now for this thing is through online membership. It kind of points a to B on this just being an online membership game then, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, where's yeah, that doesn't seem like they don't have a long track record of those type of free to play. I mean, it's not free to play, it's a membership, but it's,
Right.
you know, Tetris 99 even still running? I
That
don't even know.
one I think is oh, maybe that's still out there. I don't know. That's a good question. Is the
The
Pac-Man one
rest of
still
them been
going?
all kinda I can't imagine that one's still
Yeah.
going.
They still push I mean the F-Zero thing is like an achievement every week, I swear on. Like their achievement thing. Um,
Hmm.
you brought up a topic that I forgot to touch on Mario Party. I don't know if you saw my tweet, but those sons of bitches, the label, the front cover for Mario Party Jamboree is just besmirched by a huge tag at the bottom that says it comes with a free 3-month subscription to Nintendo Switch Online. And like, I hate it. I hate it. I hate that you put a commercial or an ad on top of my cover. I was like, okay, well it's Nintendo. I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. I bet on the inside it's reversible, right? Like, nope, not reversible. Like,
Really? Wow.
I like went online and started scouring different stores to see if this was just like a bastardized version that Best Buy was carrying or not. But like, no, they all suck.
Oh,
I hate.
really? I thought there was 2 versions of it. No?
Is there a version that does not have that? I
I
have not
I
seen it.
I thought there was, but maybe it's
God,
a Canadian version or something like that, I don't know.
if you're telling me I'm gonna have to spend another $60 to get this thing fixed because it just my OCD, it's killing me. I can't live with it.
Well, I mean, you have to you own one of the ones that's, like, download, right?
No, why would I buy one of those?
Well, like, download required? Like, some of them are the actual game, but they still have a download
Yeah, I haven't bought
addition to it.
anything that says that
Oh, okay.
because it
Okay.
irritates me. I
Yeah.
think my son has one that like from GameStop or something that was like a $12 download only code game, but that's in his collection. So yeah, irritated me. But Nintendo Switch Online, in addition to this playtest, everyone got the exclusive offer to buy Alarmo, the $100 alarm clock from Nintendo that watches you sleep. And I don't know. I'm holding it. If you're watching the video version, which you're probably
I
not because nobody
it's
watches
there.
that, I have it. It's still in the box where it will forever live because I don't know why I
This is
bought this thing because I don't need it and I'm an idiot.
Uh,
I felt so bad
yeah.
right after ordering it. I was just like, I already don't like this. And then when it arrived, I was like, I really hate that I bought this so much.
I'm convinced they're trying to find the boundary. They're trying to find the limit of how far they can go on just making any bullshit that
And
has
getting people to
Nintendo on
buy
it
it.
and selling it.
Hey,
Yes,
it's
they're trying
working.
to find where the edge is. Yep.
It is. They haven't found that boundary yet. This thing is selling. People are buying this piece of shit.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
yeah, I've contemplated taking it out of the box, and I was like, why? I have no purpose for this. Like, I sleep in a bed with another person, so it doesn't even work really. Like, it's supposed to be a single person bed. So then at that point, I'm just using the snooze button to turn it off anyway. And I don't know. Maybe I'll take it out of the box so I can, like, if it gets updates and stuff, but it's just so pointless. My kid even made
Yeah.
fun of me for buying it, which he was right to do. It was 100% right to do. I have no idea why they thought they needed to do this.
If it was $50,
Yes.
I think that's a pretty cool price for something like that. But yeah, they
But it's
it's a
$100, and
lot.
you also have to pay for their online subscription to
Hmm.
be able to even get in the door to purchase it currently. I can't imagine it's going to ever go like full retail. Like, I don't think you're going to ever walk into like a Walmart or a Target and this thing's going to be there. I just don't see it.
How did it even happen? That's the part that. How does anybody ever pitch that at Nintendo?
Yeah.
Was that a guy like messing around with an Arduino on his at home at night, and he's like, "Oh, I made an alarm clock. Oh, we could sell that."
Well, what kind of irritates me too is like they went only with like, well, some of the properties they went with are sus at all. Like Wii Fit, like why? Or Ring Fit, like,
Mhm.
but it bothers me that currently, at least, they're only doing like current gen iterations of their franchises. Like they're totally missing out on, like, I want to wake up to the original Mario Brothers theme or Super Mario Brothers 3. You know, I don't want to wake up to Mario fucking Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, and I want the old shit. Like, give me Link to the Past. So I hope that stuff comes along. We'll see. Again,
Yeah,
this may never
yeah.
leave the box, so I might be bitching about a feature that I would never use anyway. So I'd imagine this thing's pretty much worthless too, because you know that everyone has the same idea that I do. It's just like, that's a thing that no one's gonna have, and we're gonna let it sit in the collection in the box forever. So 50 years from now, there's gonna be like nothing but like boxed VGA sealed
Yeah,
copies of
they're all
this
sealed.
fucking stuff.
Nobody actually used one.
Right. Yeah. Of all the things Nintendo could have put out, like you said, why and how they came to this conclusion makes no sense.
Yeah, well, it was a Game and Watch. They're sticking to the watch part, I guess.
Sure, but like, why not make it like a wristwatch then? Why can't it be a
Yeah,
wristwatch that, like, as you move when it goes out? Like, that makes so much more sense than this. I don't know.
yeah. You would think that they could partner with a wearable company pretty easily
Hmm.
and sell a shit ton.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, that Alarmo, it's in my pile of shame now. So congrats on me being a moron.
You'll never be late again, though.
Well, I'd have to use it. God, man, we have so many Nintendo topics. I'm curious before we get into the next Nintendo related, what's the mind? Your mind? Are you
Oh,
okay?
okay.
You don't have a Tuma, do you?
The mind. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's get philosophical right now. We're gonna get deep here. No, this is a very simple card game that we picked up that you play with any certain number of people, and you each get cards with numbers on them, and you have to lay them down in the correct order from 1 to 100. It's 100 cards.
Okay.
And you can't talk, you can't do any body language, you're not supposed to. You're basically just for us, it was just 4 people sitting there trying to decipher if you had the card that was supposed to go next.
Okay.
It's a really weird experience. Eventually, it did kind of turn into like goofy, like body language stuff where you're just staring at other people and about to lay your card, trying to like fish for everybody else to make sure that, hey, nobody else is going to go type thing, right? So at first, every round you start with, I mean, the first round you start with 1 card, so it's pretty simple. 4 cards out of 100. It's pretty easy to lay them in order. But I think they get up to like level 8, so each person has 8 cards, and then trying to lay them in sequential order damn near seems impossible. But
Sure.
it's something to strive for, I guess.
Interesting. Where'd you find that one at?
So I saw it online. It was like $5, $6.
Okay.
It's very similar to another game that's called just the Game, which is kind of sorting cards in ascending and descending order. But at least in that one, you can kind of talk and work together. This one is the opposite of that, so it's a little bit interesting.
Yeah, it sounds kind of cool.
Yeah. Eventually, it made the kids just laugh hysterically because you're just basically all sitting silently and they don't know what to do with themselves, right? Because it's like such an awkward experience because that you can't communicate, but you need to somehow.
Interesting. That sounds like one of those like if you've ever been to like those team building like corporate retreat type games where it's like, you're passing the note around and like you can only pass to this person, and then like
yeah,
those get interesting. But when you succeed in those types of games or scenarios, like you just feel like so accomplished, like we did the thing, and
Yep. Yeah. The problem is, like, I think scientifically people's brains view statistics a little bit different. And this game does not work for that. If you have a person that does not understand this, like the probabilities of the numbers,
right,
where they just assume like, oh, I'm the third, like I'm gonna lay third or whatever, and it'll just destroy you. I think
and I suppose with
it'll
kids
probably
too.
end some friendships. Yeah. Well, kids, yeah, they definitely. We didn't make it near as far as we did with it, just as me and Amanda.
Oh, sure.
Which obviously that's easier too because it's only 2 players, but the more people you have, the harder it'll get.
Yeah,
But
that sounds kind of good. That kind of jogs my memory. We did my daughter's birthday was last Sunday, and she wanted to play some board games. We picked up this board game from Menards of all places for like $5 because they're clearancing on all that stuff, to make room for seasonal toys and sleds and stuff. But picked up a game called Hot Pants, which is just kind of a base generic trivia game, but like basically everyone has to like you have to answer the question like on your turn, and then everyone has the opportunity to like then contest them, like if they think they're lying or that they have the wrong answer or don't know. But the problem is like contesting and being wrong sets you further back on like your path to victory. So that gets kind of interesting with like people calling each other out, and like my son is just a moron. He like just yells hot pants at everybody and like gets his ass handed to him because he doesn't know any of the answers. So it's so pointless.
Appreciate the confidence. So
yeah, but the trivia questions are actually like really pretty good in this game, so that part's fun. But I don't know. Oh, go ahead.
Are they like questions that you would know? Like Wits and Wagers is kind of in that same kind of thing, but those are all questions that like they're basically guesses.
Yeah, they're pretty good. They're pretty up to date too. Like this was must be like a new game within the last year. So it's stuff you would know. There's some there's like a general, a science, a sports, and like an entertainment. So depending on which one you hit. What I did think was hilarious though was my son got one. It was like which of these three presidents has like been like criminally charged and sentenced or whatever. I was like, oh, this is a new game. I was like, kids, do you even need to look at the answer? Because like the nice thing is they're all multiple choice, you know, so you're not just throwing out an answer. You're you've got a reasonable shot of like just guessing. But like I just thought it was hilarious that a board game already has that in there, like for trivia.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just another flavor of like every other sort of game like this. But for $5, it was entertaining.
Huh.
We've got
Hot
like
pants.
we got quite the backlog. We've been buying like a lot of like clearance board games and stuff at Walmart. So we've got all sorts of stuff I gotta get through. I have one that looks interesting where it's Pictionary, but you download an app, and then the AI in the app is supposed to guess what you're drawing. So it's like Pictionary against AI. So I'm curious to see how that one works. We have not tried that yet, but it seems interesting. I just want to draw like filthy things and see if it'll be like penis. You know what I mean? It's
Yep.
probably not
Yep.
programmed for that, but
Well, yeah, it might be, but that that has to hurt self-esteem though. Like if the app's just like, "Yeah, I got nothing," and you're just sitting there like, "I drew it. This is what it is." And the
actually, it sounds a
app's
lot
just
like
like,
real Pictionary, where it's just like
yeah,
people drawing like the worst shit. You're just like, because there's always one of those people, right? Just like a squiggly
yeah.
line and like a slash. You're like, you got me. Like, I don't know. Well,
Huh, that's interesting.
that last piece of Nintendo related news I had on mine. Well, I guess it's not Nintendo related news, but it's adjacent. And that is, of course, Analog announced their long suspected new console, the Analog Ultra. Is that what they're calling it?
I thought it was just 3D.
Oh yeah, Analog 3D. That's what it's called. Yeah, and it's a Nintendo 64 for $250. That'll let you render the beauty of the N64 into 4K. Like that's gonna make it look better somehow. I'm curious. I don't know. I get this. Like this product actually makes a ton of sense. A lot like with the Duo that they put out, where there's not a great way to get a good signal out of the N64. The N64 used right now is about half of what they're asking for this thing, at least. Especially when you factor in 4 controllers, although those won't be sold together with it. But I
Mhm.
just could not give a shit less that this is going to exist.
Yeah.
Just, I know
I there's
it's the right time for it, I guess, right? I mean,
mhm.
that generation's got money now.
There's definitely a certain segment where this is the greatest thing ever. Um, it is a big time because I think it is the first, like, third-party system that plays 64 games, right?
I think there's been a couple other attempts, but I know I can think of one other one that I think Metal Jesus reviewed, and I know the emulation was bad. So
Right,
this is
and
probably
those
the
are probably
first
just dumping
proper
the cart,
version.
right?
Probably, yes, you're right. Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is probably the first thing, yes, that's running natively. Um, and I didn't look into it at all. I'm sure it's another FPGA. It's got to be right. And
Yeah, I can't imagine they wouldn't do that.
yeah,
Oh, I don't know why they would put it out if they weren't doing that. Um,
I feel like they played it too
it
safe with the
it's
design, though. Like it looks too
it's
much like the
dangerously
hardware.
close.
Right.
Yeah, it looks pretty close to the point where, like, the pocket and stuff like that, like, well, you can kinda come to the same design for that.
Right.
This is, like, there's no reason it has to be that way
I agree.
for the for the playability of it.
Yeah. I would
Um,
have
uh
liked to have seen them do like a side mount. To be honest, I think it would have been cool if like the 64 cart would have like slid in on its back and like front loaded.
Oh yeah.
But then I suppose people would bitch because like, oh, now you got to grab the label, and but they could have put an eject button in.
Mm,
I don't know.
hmm. Yeah. I it's got some Nintendo lawyers, I think maybe taking a peek. I would
Yeah,
think.
yeah, this is kind of a big one because they still have a lot of value on their 64 lineup because it's not a great system to emulate. They're bringing more of it onto the Switch Online. Maybe they won't care, but I don't know. I'm curious to see like some reviews of this and just see what it looks like. Like, can they systematically use something with the FPGA to like help render out some of the fog and draw distance, or like, are you
Mm.
just getting are you just getting something that's going to make those games look even uglier because you're showing them in a cleaner, crisper light and it just looks
Yeah.
gross? But I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll do good things.
I mean, the PlayStation stuff has gotten came a long ways. Like
Yeah,
the emulation on that stuff, it looks really good on some stuff. And then the 64 stuff, yeah, it's really hit or miss. Even the stuff on Nintendo's own service is, not the best it could be
right. Yeah, no, by
emulated.
any means. I'm curious to see what they do with controllers. I assume they're probably partnering with 8-Bit Do as the recommended controller.
Yeah.
It seems like that's kind of their go-to anymore, and they probably won't package one in with it. But I don't know.
Hmm.
I guess I'm excited for the people that are excited about this, but not my
Do
jam.
the memory cards and all that stuff,
Hmm.
I wonder how that works, if it's still through the
Yeah,
controllers or what?
I didn't think about that because I didn't look at the shots well enough. That's a good question. You would think they would have designed something and just like slap that bitch into the console itself, or maybe, well, you know what? It probably has internal storage. I bet it has like save states. There's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way they would have not done that.
I yeah. Yeah, there's gotta be some sort of layer on top of that, because even, like, the expansion pack, they have to have something that does some sort of check
Right.
on a software level to see if it to basically tell the cart that it has it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what are pre-orders going live? Are they? Was it already?
I think it already did,
Yeah, like
maybe.
the 18th, maybe. Sounds right or something. I
Yeah.
don't know. I I was I was really thinking too. If they were gonna do something like this, they'd do like the fun colors. Like the translucent line, like they've kind of started doing with their pocket. Like, why not launch this with like four versions of that? But
Mhm.
the black one looks very sleek. I think if you were gonna buy one, I think the white one's the way to go. Like, there was never a white N64 console or like whatever that gray is, but
Mhm.
yeah, not for me. But now the real question in my mind is what's next. So they've just knocked out the last, I would say, feasible cartridge-based system because they're not going to do the
Mhm.
Jaguar. They're
No.
I don't see them going back and doing like an Atari. So I think CD is gonna have to be the next thing. Like, if you're gonna do something, it's gonna have to be the analog station, probably.
Yeah. Get the lasers going again, I guess.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
And then
Because
you
I don't
get into the
the
realm of like we can't ship it with a BIOS. So then like,
yeah.
or they shouldn't, I guess, to protect their asses. So then how are you doing that and servicing? Like, I don't know. The people
Yeah,
who
I
are
don't know
buying
if
that can figure that out, but makes it challenging.
yeah, unless they can make their own, like, if they can reverse engineer their own
I suppose.
BIOS somehow, that would be quite an undertaking, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what's after this. I'm still amazed at like how much the Pocket just keeps selling. Like every time they put out a new iteration of that, or like make like a like cartridge add-on thing, like people are clamoring for that. Like it seems to really have hit, which is wild to me because there's so many like $100 options that just emulate every version of what that thing does perfectly, and like
Hmm.
not needing a cartridge. So I don't know. It's a
Yeah.
status thing. I think the analog line carries a pedigree. Just trying to make people jealous.
Yep. Yeah, and I think it's a turning point on the Mister side too, because I think they are kind of reaching the end of like what that platform can do
Yeah.
until they like get a whole new chipset platform going.
Yeah. I always forget about the Mister race. Like that got so big over the pandemic. Like people building out
Yep.
Misters and stuff, and then everything kind of came back down to earth after that. And even like I'm
Yep.
surprised too that like Pi building hasn't has kind of like fallen off. Like because the Pi 5 now kind of got to that price point where it's like, well, I could get a micro PC, secondhand, and have a little more oomph than what the Pi 5 is giving you for the cost. By the time you,
Yeah.
because the Pi 5, like if you're going to turn it into an emulation box, like you need a secondary fan, like you know what I mean. It's not
Yeah.
like this little $50 thing that you can play with and run Super Nintendo games anymore. I mean, it is, I guess, if you want to buy the older versions, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You could definitely do that. But yeah, if you want anything higher up, you're going to have to mod it and get something going on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been following this project that it's just basically he prints cards, NFC cards that will boot up in a Mister.
Oh yeah, I think you were telling me about that.
So now he's like making trading card packs of
Okay.
these. Like, so it's like all these cards with just different art and stuff, and you can buy them as a trading card pack. You just open them up and you get, I suppose you have to have basically every ROM set imaginable.
Because yeah, I suppose it
And
just boots into like it tells it to look up like specific file path and like execute the launch, and
yeah, yeah,
that's kind of cool. Yeah, there's some people
yeah,
doing some really neat stuff out there.
yeah. It's kind of arbitrary, but it's got some sort of like, I don't know, some sort of vibe to it that I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you'll ever get to a point where like you know not having like a tactile option to like boot up a game, even if it is just like something as silly as pointing to a directory. It's still a neat option.
Yeah, and it gives like some choice to it, whereas like the menu of every ROM, it's so overwhelming a lot of times
Yes.
where it's like if somebody gave you some cards and be like, pick one of these to play, it's a little bit different.
Yep. Yeah. It's definitely when everything's at your fingertips, you find yourself almost playing none of it. I feel like, you know.
Hmm.
That's why those flashcards always get me too. It's just like I don't know. You start out excited and you're playing like 2 seconds of every game, but then you're never committing to any one thing, and
Hmm.
it's a different vibe.
That's for sure. Yeah,
Well, are we on to staff picks?
I think so.
Okay. You want to go first?
Sure. My staff pick is Life Force, and it's not the video game.
Okay. Now I'm curious.
Although I do recommend Life Force, the video game.
Yes.
Um, this is a movie from the mid '80s, I think,
Okay.
from Canon Films. Which, if you don't, I mean, they were like the Chuck Norris, like just schlocky stuff, right?
Well, most of the 80s
And
was.
yeah, um, they did the what was their last big one? I think was the He-Man movie, and that's basically what sunk them because they
Sure.
put so much money into that. But this was one of the first ones that they really tried to put a ton of money into to make it seem like it was a big production. And it is a wild movie because feels like one of those old NES games that every level is a different game, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
Like, oh, you're doing this, you're racing, and now you're platforming, all this. That's what this movie feels like, and none of it is like super amazing, but it's crazy the places it goes because it just changes so much. Um, I recommend it if you haven't seen it, but it starts off as a very like alien feel. It's these guys out on a shuttle, they find a alien spacecraft, right?
Sure.
Go in there and they find like these human bodies just encased in glass. So they're like, "Oh, cool, let's bring these home," right?
Yeah.
That's a good
Neat.
idea. Yeah. Um, they bring them home. Turns out, there's something a little bit different about these things that suck up human life forms, and there is probably there's one lady in here where I mean, all the bodies are naked. I
Yeah. That was
she's
when I
naked.
pulled up screenshots. It was just like a topless chick in every photo.
She's naked almost the entire movie. There's one like 20-minute scene, I would say, where she's just going through this building and just like killing guys and just walking through, and it's just her full naked
They
the whole
show like
time.
full frontal and everything too.
Yeah, yeah.
Jeez.
It's it's kind of crazy. And yeah, they take life force away from you, and then those people that got taken away wake up, and then they're trying to get life force from somebody else, right? If they don't, they get turned into dust.
Okay.
It turns into they find the original astronaut lost in space, bring him back, and this guy looks like Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford, just the cheap knockoff of him,
Sure.
and he's not a very good actor. Terrible actor, I would say, in this movie. And he can read the mind of this lady because she can also switch bodies now too.
And how did he gain
And
the ability to read the
uh,
mind?
well, this lady is irresistible, right?
Oh.
So he was doing some funny business up on the ship with her.
Oh.
So he's got a piece of her inside of inside of him, so he can. But then it turns into a movie where it's like a detective movie where this guy is like going, you know, can read the mind of where this lady is, what body she's in. At one point, she is in Patrick Stewart, who is a doctor in
Okay.
an insane asylum, and they keep drugging him, and the guy is just yelling at him and just drugging and drugging and drugging, and eventually, like he like finds him irresistible somehow, so that he ends up kissing Patrick Stewart,
Oh my god.
and and then another girl gets the body, and he's basically like slapping her around and saying like, "You like this? You want me to slap you around? I can tell." It There's some really messed up stuff in this,
Oh man. That
and
sounds bonkers.
then it turns into a zombie movie at the end. Um, it really goes places.
56% on Rotten Tomatoes. Oh, this looks like you found this on Tubi, I assume.
Yeah, this was a Tubi
Okay.
movie for sure.
Interesting.
Um,
I don't know that I
some
ever
of it's
heard of
really
this.
impressive, but
It looks wild. 85, huh? Huh. I'll have to check it out. Yeah, the zombie vibe is kind of what I was thinking it would like turn into the way you were talking about, like how they have to just like keep attacking the next person.
yep, it's got some really good practical effects too.
IMDb, Life Force is an extremely schizophrenic movie. It's the opening
Yeah,
line.
yeah, it doesn't every probably 20 minutes, it turns into a different movie. It's kinda weird.
That's pretty wild. I might have to check that one out. Sometimes those 2B gems are great.
Yeah.
Well, I've got not a movie, but a video for my staff pick um, that everyone should check out. This just like randomly popped up in my feed. It was like a channel that had like 3 videos and like 300 subs, and this guy puts out this genius video. You can just search it on YouTube. It's called "I Was a Teenage Foot Clan Ninja." And the YouTube channel is harder. It's like off duty figure photos, but just search "I Was a Teenage Foot Clan Ninja." It is hilarious. It's like 7 minutes long. It's basically like this guy. They're doing like a mockumentary and they're interviewing him, and he's like recounting his tale of like growing up in New York and being inducted into the Foot Clan. And my God, it is so funny. I've watched it about 20 times. And he basically just like kind of recaps the movie, but from the perspective of like the Foot Clan people. And like, the whole explanation on how like he's inducted. He's like, well, my buddy, he wanted me to go to this party out in like, out on the island. And he's like, it's kind of like a dude's thing. He's like, oh, is my friend trying to tell me something here? He's like, I'll go support him. And he's just like, turns out it wasn't a gay rave. It was even better. Like they had arcades, a 10-year-old running a craps table. You could do that there. But yeah, it's just so funny. And like his deadpan delivery, like obviously he's a guy who's like, you know, late 40s, mid 40s now, and he's just like talking about it. And like some of the stuff he like shoots holes in, he's like, and that's when I realized like we were just pawns in the scheme between a Japanese man and a rat that scratched his face 20 years ago. He's like, think about how insane that is. He's like, I'm not even talking about how Splinter immigrated to the United States. Like, how does a guy come from Japan and find one rat in New York City? Like, God, it's so funny. And then his whole like Casey Jones thing. He's like, Casey Jones should be in jail. It's like a human being falls into a garbage truck. You can't just like pull the lever and say, oops. Oops doesn't get you off of murder, Casey. I don't know. Like the guy just crushed it. And then today, right before we started the podcast, he uploaded the sequel, which is The Secret of the Ooze. Not quite as funny as the original, but he carries a lot of like the humor over. If you grew up though in the 80s and 90s watching the TMNT stuff, you have to watch this parody. It's genius, and this guy just like killed it. It's so funny.
And that's the thing, like we've actually done a podcast about that first movie, right? And it's all those talking points about how crazy it was that all those kids were doing that
Right.
in the club that they had, and the turtles and who they were, and the absurdity of it, and to like take that whole idea and just build a character as if you were a part of it, and doing a documentary about it is it really is genius. It's great.
Yeah. It's so good. There's so many quotable one-liners in there too. Just like then they
we'll fight turtles, whatever.
These guys came up and they're like, I don't know if you'd be interested, but we're joining us, but we're a group of ninjas. And he's like, whoop, it's 1988. It's like, all I need to know are 2 things. Like, when do I get my nunchucks? God, it's so funny. Like, so funny. The guy absolutely killed it. Like, I'm curious to see where his YouTube channel goes from here. Like, hopefully he does some more off the wall stuff. And then I like how he used like the new NECA figures to like recreate and stage some of like the scenes. Like, that's pretty smart.
Turns out we were all just child soldiers.
Yeah.
In this war between a rat and a Japanese man.
And then I like when he's explaining the fight scene too, of like how like they infiltrate the lair, and it's like, turns out we were like on the same block, like 100 feet away. They were just under the ground this entire time. They were just in the sewers. Oh, it's so good. Yeah. watch the first one for sure, everybody, and then check out the second one. I can't recommend it enough. I
Is he gonna do a third one? Because that one is gonna be a little bonkers
no,
too. Like, what do you even do about that one?
right. He put a the end on it, and then I was thinking about it like, ah, it's a missed opportunity. But then I remembered like there is no Foot Clan in the third one, so I guess
Mhm.
like if you're gonna play that role, what I liked the best though is like I was sharing this thing with everybody because I thought it was hilarious, and then I was like, got home and I was put it on for my wife. I was like, you gotta watch this. And we get like 7 minutes in. She's like, I don't get it. So like he was in the movie? I'm like, no, that's not the joke. I'm like, what's wrong with you? You're completely missing the point and why this is hilarious.
Mm,
Uh,
that's
so good.
yeah, you definitely have to grow up turtles. I've seen that movie for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Without it, it's kind of, but I mean, although I guess like my wife is bad about remembering any movies. So,
Hmm.
yeah. But I suppose with that, we should probably move on to the weekend rental. This
Hmm.
podcast gets too long here. The weekend rental, of course, unless you're if you're new to this thing, what we do is we play a game for a given system. We will give our opinions as we would as whether we would personally buy, rent, or burn that game, and by burn we mean light it on fire. The system of choice this episode is one we don't do often or at all on here really, and that's the PlayStation. We're talking about the EA juggernaut that is Future Cop LAPD. I think this game came out in '98. It's it's that type of game that doesn't get made anymore because there's no B tier games. But this was kind of EA's bread and butter back then in that 3D era. This reminds me a lot of the stuff they were putting out on like the 3DO and things like that too, where it's just like full of like 90s tude and like violence, and them not quite sure how to make things work super well in 3D, or with the system. The basic premise is it's the future. I don't even know what year they tell you in the intro, but apparently like law enforcement in LA has required them to just have hover cars that transform into two-legged mechs that you just walk around and just unleash holy hell onto everything. And it plays very much like it almost plays more like an arcade style game than like a traditional home console game. And yeah, you're basically set loose on different zones of the city, and you've got missions and objectives, and you've got a fair amount of traversal and a pretty interesting set of weapons. You've got your traditional rail guns. You've got your middle missile. You've got your heavy missile, and it's one of those games that kind of the time you don't see it much anymore, where rationing your ammunition and understanding when to top off is important because you only get it at certain stages through certain refill packs. Um, this is a game that I loved back in the day. I don't know anyone else who owned it. I thought it was fantastic. It was always a budget title and played a lot of it. I think it holds up for the most part. I'm curious as to what you think. I'd imagine this is your first outing with it.
Yeah, I can't say I even really knew anything about this game originally. I it might have been in one of those hidden gem videos of some sort along the way, right?
Sure.
But yeah, I if you pressed me on what it was, I had no idea. And yeah, it's I think the main the gaminess of it is trying to decipher like where you use your ammo, right?
Right.
If it's just guys, you use your rail guns. If it's turrets or whatever, you use this, and that's kind of interesting to walk around to be able to traverse around and basically assess the threats and then press the correct buttons,
Right.
which kind of boils down to. Um, and it's got a good lock-on system with strafing, which
Hmm.
I thought was impressive for this generation, and it moved pretty smoothly for that. Some of the animations are kind of slow and deliberate. The jumping is especially just doesn't feel very good
Yeah.
in this game, I would say, but for a mech, I guess. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with this game.
Yeah, it's a hard game to kind of jump back into right away because it's not a style of game that gets made anymore. So like rewiring your brain to like play like that. And then kind of like once you settle back into realizing how the game is built, right? Like it's very intentional about it gives you a lot of freedom, but it's very intentional, and you start to read that in the layout of the levels and the weapon power-ups as to how they want you to play it and approach it. And once you get in that mindset of like, okay, like this is where they're going to want me to go, something awful is going to come at me, so I can't squander these resources now because these are meant to like
Hmm.
get me back in the game after. And I think that's a critical point in progressing, because one thing that's definitely worth mentioning is that you don't hit a game over screen from like a life perspective in this game. You just restart the level, but you restart from square one. There are no
Hmm.
checkpoints. There is like you can easily make one bad move, especially on your first playthrough of a zone, and you're starting all over, which can feel a little defeating. But it also was pretty common back then.
Yeah. My first playthrough, it was exactly that. I went down the wrong corridor or whatever, and I got flanked from like three different sides, and it was like,
Mhm,
this is a bad time. And yeah, I ended up dying, and
yeah,
I
yeah,
knew
and that
not to take that or go about that at a different strategy then, I guess.
and that is one thing that makes this version of the or that game mode of the main story mode of the game utter hell in two player, because you share a life, and to have two people who like are aware enough
Ooh.
to understand the situation and approach it the right way is almost impossible. I've tried with other people, and it's not a good time. And then I think the real challenge in this game more than anything is that it's the camera that is ultimately your persistent enemy. They give you several modes to try and account for it. Usually, taking yourself out of the standard camera and going to the sky camera, like the more top down, is the best bet. But in a game like this, in early 3D, they've got a lot of detail, but there's just so much flat textures and grays and browns that it's very easy to get lost in this game and not know where you need to go to open something up, even with the map. And I think that's kind of challenging. You get through it, but I could see it turning a lot of people off initially. But to me, like once you adapt to those things, and you like you said, the lock on works great. You can always move. You can get yourself out of it if you learn to play the game at its pace. It becomes really rewarding.
Yep. Yeah, you gotta be deliberate on what you're trying to accomplish,
Hmm.
for sure. It kind of reminds me of like a Siege or a Rainbow Six style of like game, right?
Right.
Where you have to be very tactical on what your actions are going to be, how you're going to go push forward.
Yes. Yes, and more or less play within the rule set that they've laid out in front of you, because
Yeah.
yeah, not doing it in the correct sequence has real penalties. I also love like the stupid twisted like humor in this game, like that second level, because you're like co-pilot or like person in your ear or whatever is like a female character, and like that second level you're fighting an area, and you like come across this hotel with like a big neon sign that just says Pinky's, and she's like, ah, Pinky's Hotel, I remember prom night. I'm like, oh my god, like why is that in this
Oh,
game?
jeez. Wow.
It's so funny.
Yeah,
And then
the writing on it is pretty good for what you would think was just like a cop procedural.
mhm.
It's definitely got more edge to it than that.
And I love too that it's got like that 90s era, like arcadey, just like blood curdling scream from every like foot soldier you blow up. They're just like always like, ah! It's just like murder. Uh, I will say for the most part, the sound design is good. The soundtrack is atrocious in most of this game, though. Like
Mm.
it is very bad music on very short loops, and these levels are not short. Some of these levels will take
Mhm.
you close to an hour, like especially in a first go through. So that kind of gets grating after a while. I'm sure you could go into the settings and turn that off or down, but yeah, I found myself not liking that.
Yeah, agreed. Should we so I was playing through the first player game,
Hmm.
or the original part, and was having a good time.
Hmm.
And you mentioned don't forget to check out the other mode.
Hmm.
The Is it assault or precinct or something?
Precinct Assault, yes.
Yeah.
Which, as it
So
turns out, is the
oh,
secret star of the show, right?
yeah, that is. I couldn't stop playing that after that.
Right.
That's the only thing I played in that game after that.
Yep. Same. And I fell down that rabbit hole back in the day. So yeah, it's like the base game is good for what it is, but then you get to this Precinct Assault, which is the alternative mode, which is basically uh it is, I mean, more or less just a tower defense game, King of the Hill sort of situation where you're in these combat arenas. You can play against another person, but if you're playing solo, you're playing against this like evil cybernetic flying fortress ship that it almost reminds me of like that Sinistar arcade game where like the enemy's just like constantly coming after you and like screaming. Like he's always
Yeah.
talking shit.
Ah.
Yeah. And like I will destroy you, human. And it I don't know, but it's such a good tower defense game. Like you basically are out there capturing spawn points, replanting towers, you're managing troops, you're upgrading bases, and the main objective is to then your red team and blue team, and you win by getting a ground tank into the base of the other color. So like you're always trying to take down the blue team. And I know like in describing that this probably sounds like okay, very basic and like not that exciting, but the rhythm of the gameplay and the back and forth and like even how well the computer does at adjusting and upgrading over time is so much fun. And you just like you finish one, you're just like constantly like I'm ready for the next one. It's so good.
Yeah, and I mean, tower defense is, I think, the right way to describe this, but
Yeah.
probably at this era, really feels like an RTS game, but
Hmm.
instead of just like controlling the units themselves, you're just buying them and just basically letting them take care of themselves, and you get to still play the normal game with, and that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good. And I love that like there's different zones to do, and I love that like just constantly tears up. Like with every victory, it gets harder and harder. And yeah, I was the same with you. Like once I started getting back into this mode, that was all I played. Um, and I can remember like I because I played this mode to death back in the day, and like it like the difficulty and the AI jump and is so good. Like it gets to a point basically in some of those higher tiers where like you have to be super strategic about when to call in like your bigger tanks, and then it's gonna require you to do like the manned run. Like you're gonna have to run around, make sure you've got every power up, and then you're gonna have to run and escort that thing into the base. Otherwise, there's no path
Oh,
forward.
okay.
And that gets super fun. Like just going in guns blazing and like playing support to a ground tank. Like it is
Yeah, see,
super
that's
cool.
completely a different way than I was playing, because basically it was me. You're just basically taking down as much stuff as you can,
Yep.
trying to control area, right? And then buying stuff when you can. Whereas playing like that that's a totally different style, is basically trying to get that tank over there
Yeah.
stealthily as much as you can.
Yeah, and I
Huh.
think that stuff would probably come into play too a lot more if you were playing against like a skilled like person on the other end too, which would be fun.
Yeah. I picture this with some of my friends that I had in that era, and I think we would have played that mode a lot, like very competitively to try and
Mhm.
and edge each
Yeah,
other out on two-player there.
I tried to get people into this, but like I'd gotten so hardcore into playing it solo against the computer that I just got so good that like I could never convince anyone to continue playing it and
Yeah.
getting better because I was going to crush you every time, guaranteed. So it's it's super fun though. Like you said, like having like the tower defense RTS stuff, but then being able to still go in with guns blazing and blow shit up is a fun way to manage a game. So
Yep.
and I like the dynamic and like the reward system of like, your currency comes from your currency for upgrading and calling in support troops comes from you know, being proactive and assaulting and taking down enemy vehicles. Like it's a good dynamic. It's really
Yep.
cool. It's better than it has any right to be. It's surprising. And another thing that like these game modes are great too, but like I just like the whole charm of this game, like the little package they put together. Like I love when you exit either mode, it just takes you to the game's end credits, and like they've got like a whole Pixar type like animation sequence where that mech's like dancing around and like morphing and like falling over and bloopers. It's so out of place for the vibe of the game, but I don't know, it just kind of adds to the whole package.
Right. Well, especially the name. I mean, when you're describing a specific police department,
Mm-hmm.
like you're just already your eyes glaze over that this is just a cop simulation thing, right? Like,
Mm-hmm. And you know what I was gonna mention earlier too, but you know what the base game kind of reminds me of a lot is like this feels like a mech take on their Strike series. You know what I mean? This
mm-hmm.
feels very much like that sort of vibe. It's a little different, but like that's the closest approximation I can get to like the base game and how it plays. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, yeah, like you said, the camera, you kind of do end up playing it like a strike game a little
Right?
bit, you know?
Yeah. You almost have to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what do you want to give this thing on the Byron Burns scale?
I um, I'm gonna give it a buy just based on that one mode already. That on itself, I think carries this already to a buy. Um, Playing an early tower defense game like that, that's just really cool and a good one. They like
Mhm.
had a very good version of that. Like they knew how to make that type of game already. It was pretty impressive. Um, and even the base mode is a lot of fun. Just going in there mowing down a bunch of people right away, and it's a good time. Um, but yeah, it's a definite buy for me. Glad I played it.
Yeah, I'm gonna second that. With games like this, you always wonder how they hold up, especially from this era. Especially knowing that this one was kind of like, even at the time it was released, was not like a powerhouse game on this console. It was always kind of a little rough around the edges, but yeah, it's still really good. It holds up well, and for sure, like once you get into that precinct assault mode, like it's amazing to me that the bonus mode in this game is really like the highlight. To be honest, it's so much fun. It's so addictive. The grind is good. the The whole premise with that stupid Skynet voice just like screaming at you is awesome. I love it.
Yeah. I can you think of many games that have completely? I mean, they have different. Those two modes have completely different feel,
Yeah, it is like
gameplay
booting into
wise.
a separate game almost. Like they've got separate
Yeah.
narration. They've got it's
Yet the main
interesting,
thing you're controlling is the same. It's
right?
it's it's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I'm surprised this game never got like a sequel or hasn't gotten like a an updated port for like Steam at least. But I suppose a lot of
Hmm.
that is just that EA hasn't made this type of game in over 20 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
they
they
don't
really
care.
don't
Yeah.
publish this type of stuff. This was their bread and butter though back in the day. But yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of wild that they don't license out some of this old stuff, right? But
Hmm.
they just must not see any money in it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the nice thing with this one is, if you're a physical collector, this thing is still very affordable, under $20. Look like 15 for a complete copy. I'm sure you can find
Hmm.
it for less because I don't think anyone's sitting on this thing thinking like this is a hidden gem or anything. I think it just falls so far under the radar for a lot of people, but it's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely recommend playing this.
Next time we get together, we'll do the two-player mode, take each other head on.
Yep. Oh, I'll get my ass kicked, I'm sure.
I don't know, I'm kind of rusty, but it's fun.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a show.
Another one
Um,
gone.
it is. We're on Twitter. We should be on Blue Sky, I guess. I don't know. It seems
Yeah,
like that's where everybody is now.
everyone's been switching, and like I've noticed that like our accounts like drop. Like people must be bailing off the platform again because numbers are going way down on follows.
Yep. Yeah, we're so maybe next time we'll see.
It might happen.
There might be another place to say in this outro. We're on weekendrentalpodcast@gmail.com if you ever want to get a hold of us. Set up some times to have a tournament, maybe like a LAPD Future Cop
Mm.
tournament. Be cool if they had 4-way.
Yes,
That
I
would be
agree.
that would be fun. 2-way is a little bit too direct in those type of games, where 4-way, like RTS 4-ways, or
Yeah,
some amazing
chaos.
gameplay. Yep. um, but yeah, I think that's gonna do it. So until next time, be kind, rewind.